Hello everyone, it's the next day. It is currently 12:38 p.m. We'll see that it's May 15th. Let's get this going. Let's get this moving on. I'm liking it so far. I mean, of course I'm liking it. Like I already know what happens. But yeah. Anyway, Chapter 15, page 86. About a quarter of a mile along the Harlow side, the GS and WM tracks plunged directly into the woods. The heavily wooded land sloped down to a marshy area. It was full of mosquitoes almost as big as fighter planes, but it was cool, blessedly cool. We sat down in the shade to drink our cokes. Vern and I threw our shirts over our shoulders to keep the bugs off, but Chris and Teddy just sat naked to the waist, looking as cool as and collected, two Eskimos in an ice house. We hadn't been there 5 minutes when Vern had to go off in the bushes and take a squat, which led to a good deal of joking and elbowing when he got back. Trains scare you much, Vern? No, Vern said. I was gonna squat when we got across anyway. I had to take a squat. Vern, Chris and Teddy chorused. Come on, you guys, I did, sincerely. Then you won't mind if we examine the seat of your jockeys for Hershey's squirts, will ya? Teddy asked, and Vern laughed, finally understanding that he was getting ribbed. Go screw, Chris turned to me. That train scare you, Gordy? Nope, I said and sipped my coke. Mm-hmm. Not much, you sucker. He punched my arm. Sincerely, I wasn't scared at all. Yeah, you wasn't scared? Teddy was looking me over carefully. No, I was frickin' petrified. This slew all of them, even Vern, and we laughed long and hard. Then we just lay back, not goofing or anymore, just drinking our cokes and being quiet. My body felt warm, exercise at peace with itself. Nothing in it was working cross-grained to anything else. I was alive and glad to be. Everything seemed to stand out with a special dearness, and although I never could have said that out loud, I didn't think it mattered. Maybe that sense of dearness was something I wanted just for myself. I think I began to understand a little bit that day what makes men become daredevils. I paid $20 to watch Evel Knievel attempt his jump over the Snake River Canyon a couple years ago, and my wife was horrified. She told me that if I'd been born a Roman, would have been right there in the Colosseum, munching grapes and watching as the lions disemboweled the Christians. She was wrong, although it was hard for me to explain why, and really I think she thought I was just jiving it. I didn't cough up that 20 to watch the man die on coast to coast closed circuit TV, although I was quite sure that was exactly what was going to happen. I went because of the shadows that are always somewhere behind our eyes, because of what Bruce Springsteen calls the darkness on the edge of town in one of his songs. And at one time or another, I think everyone wants to dare that darkness in spite of jalopy bodies that some joker of a god gave us human beings. No, not in spite of our jalopy bodies, but because of them. Hey, tell that story, Chris said suddenly, sitting up. What story? I asked, although I guess I knew. I always felt uncomfortable when the talk turned to my stories, although all of them seemed to like them, wanting to tell stories, even wanting to write them down. That was just peculiar enough to be sort of cool, like wanting to grow up to be a sewer inspector or Grand Prix mechanic. Richie Richie Jenner, a kid who hung around with us until his family moved to Nebraska in 1959, was the first one to find out that I wanted to be a writer when I grew up, and I wanted to do that for my full-time job. We were up in my room just fooling around, and he found a bunch of handwritten pages under the comic books in a carton in my closet. What's this? Richie asks. Nothing, I say, and try to grab them back. Richie held the pages up out of reach, and I must admit I didn't try very hard to get them back. I wanted him to read them at the same time, and I didn't. An uneasy mix of pride and shyness that has never changed in many that changed in me very much when someone asked to look. The act of writing itself it is done in secret, like oh, the writing itself is done in secret. That's true. Oh, I have one friend who has done things like write stories in the display of windows of bookshops and department stores, but this is a man who is nearly crazy with courage. The kind of man you'd like to have with you just if you just happen to fall down with a heart attack in a city where no one knew you. For me it always want to be and always falls short. It always that adolescent in the bathroom with the door locked. Oh my god. Richie sat there at the end of my bed for most of the afternoon reading his way through the stuff I had been doing. Most of it influenced by the same sort of comic books as the ones that had given Vern nightmares. And when he was done, Richie looked at me in a strange way that made me feel very peculiar, as if he had been forced to reappraise my whole personality. He said, "You're pretty good at this. Why don't you show these to Chris?" I said, "No, I want it to be it's a secret." And Richie said, "Why? It ain't. You ain't no queer. I mean, it ain't poetry." Still, I made him promise not to tell anyone about my stories, and of course he did it, and turned out most of them like to read the stuff I wrote, which is mostly about getting burned alive or some crook coming back from the dead and slaughtering the jury that had condemned them in 12 interesting ways, or a maniac that went crazy and chopped a lot of people into veal cutlets before the hero Kurt Cannon cut the subhuman screeching madman to pieces with a round after found from his smoke .45 automatic. In my stories, there were always rounds, never bullets. For a change of pace, there were the Lee Dio stories. Lee Dio was a town in France, and during 1942, a grim squad of tired American dog faces were trying to retake it from the Nazis. This was 2 years before I discovered the Allies didn't land in France until 1944. They went on trying to retake it, fighting their way from street to street through about 40 stories, which I wrote between the ages of 9 and 14. Teddy was absolutely mad for Lee Dio stories, and I think I wrote the last dozen or so just for him. But then I was heartily sick of Lee Dio and writing things like Mon Dieu and Cherchez le Boche and Fermez la porte. Oh my god, my French is so bad. In Le Dio, French peasants were always hissing to GI dog faces to ferme la porte. But Teddy would hunch over the pages, his eyes big, his brow beaded with sweat, his face twisting. There were times when I could almost hear air-cooled Brownings and whistling 88s going off in his skull. The way he clamored for more Le Dio stories was both pleasing and frightening. Nowadays, writing is my work, and pleasure has diminished a little, and more often that guilty pleasure has become associated in my head with the coldly clinical images of artificial insemination. I come according to the rules and regs laid down in my publishing contract, and although no one is ever going to call me the Thomas Wolfe of my generation, I rarely feel like a cheat. I get it off as hard as I can every freaking time. Doing less would in an odd way, but like going or what that meant to us back then. What scares me is how often it hurts these days. Back then, I was always disgusted by how damn good it felt to write. These days, I sometimes look at this typewriter and wonder when it's going to run out of good words. I don't want that to happen. I guess I can stay cool as long as I don't run out of good words, you know? What's this story? Vern asked uneasily. It ain't a horror story, is it, Gordy? I don't think I want to hear no horror stories. I'm not up for that, man. No, it ain't horror, Chris said. It's really funny, gross, but funny. Go on, Gordy. Hammer that to us. Is that about Lydio? Teddy asked. No, it ain't about Lydio, you psycho, Chris said, and Rabbit punched him. It's about that pie eating contest. Hey, I didn't even write it down yet, I said. Yeah, but tell it. You guys want to hear it? Sure, Teddy said. Boss. Well, it ain't about this made up town, Gretna, I call it, Gretna, Maine. Gretna, Vern said, grinning. What kind of name is that? There ain't no Gretna in Maine. Shut up, fool, Chris said. He just told you it's made up, didn't he? Yeah, but Gretna sounds pretty stupid. Lots of real towns sound stupid, Chris said. I mean, what about Alfred, Maine, or Saco, Maine, or Jerusalem lot, or Castle frickin' Rock? There ain't no castle here. Most town names are stupid. You just don't think so because you're used to him, right, Gordy? Sure, I said, but privately I thought Vern was right. Gretna was a pretty stupid name for a town. I just hadn't been able to think of another one. So anyway, they're having their annual Pioneer Days, just like in Castle Rock. Yeah, Pioneer Days. That's a frickin' blast, Vern said earnestly. I put my whole family in that jail on wheels they have, even frickin' Billy. It was only for half an hour and it cost me my whole allowance, but it was worth it just to know where that son of a whore was. Will you shut up and let me tell it? Teddy hollered. And let him tell it, Teddy hollered. Vern blinked. Sure, yeah. Okay. Go on, Gordy, Chris said. It's not really much. Now, we don't expect much from a wet end like you, Teddy said, but tell it anyway. I cleared my throat. So anyway, it's Pioneer Days, and on the night they have these three big events. There's an egg there's an egg roll for the little kids and a sack race for kids that are like 8 or 9. And then there's that pie eating contest. And the main guy of the story is a fat kid nobody likes named Davy Hogan. Like Charlie Hogan's brother if he had one, Vern said, and then shrank back as Chris Rabbit punched him again. Oh my god. This kid's our age, but he's fat. He weighs like 180 and he's always getting beat up and ranked out. And all the kids, instead of calling him Davy, they call him Lard Ass Hogan and ranked him out whenever he got the chance. They nodded respectfully, showing the proper sympathy for Lard Ass. Although if such a guy ever showed up in Castle Rock, we all would have been teasing him and ranking him to the dogs and back. So he decides to take revenge because he's like fed up. He's only in the pie eating contest because that's like the final event during Pioneer Days and everyone digs it. The prize is $5. So he wins it and he gives a finger to everybody, Teddy said. Boss. No, it's better than that, Chris said. Just shut up and listen. Lardass figures to himself $5. What's that? If anybody remembers anything at all in 2 weeks, it'll just be that frickin' pig Hogan out ate everybody. Well, it figures. Let's go over to his house and rank the crap out of him. Only now we'll call him Pie Ass instead of Lard Ass. They nodded. They nodded some more, agreeing that Davy Hogan was thinking cat. I began to warn to my own story, but everybody expects him to enter the contest. Even his mom and dad. Hey, they practically got that $5 spent for him already. Yeah, right, Chris said. So he's thinking about it and hating the whole thing because being fat isn't really his fault. See, he's got that weird freaking gland, something, and my cousin's like that, Vern said excitedly. Sincerely, she weighs close to 300 pounds, supposed to be hyboid gland or something like that. I don't know about her hyboid gland, but what a freaking blimp. No, she looks like a freaking Thanksgiving turkey. And this one time, will you shut up, Vern? Whew, Chris said violently. For the last time, honest to God, he had finished his Coke and now he turned the hourglass shaped green bottle upside upside down and brandished it over Vern's head. Yeah, right. I'm sorry. Go on, Gordy. The swell story. I smiled. I didn't really mind Vern's interruptions, but of course I couldn't tell Chris that. He was the self-appointed guardian of art. So he's turning it over in his head, in his mind, the whole week before the contest. At school, kids keep coming up to him and saying, "Hey, Lardas, how many pies you gonna eat? You gonna eat 10, 20, freaking 80?" And Lardas, he says, "How should I know? I don't even know what kind they are." And see, that's quite a bit of interest in the contest because the champ in this grown-up name is Bill Traynor, I guess. And this guy, Traynor, he ain't even fat. In fact, he's a real string bean. But he can eat pies like a whiz. And the year before the heat, he ate 6 pies in 5 minutes. Whole pies? Teddy asked, awestruck. Right, you are. And Lardass, he's the youngest guy to ever be in the contest. Go, Lardass, Teddy cried expectantly. Scoff up those frickin' pies. Tell 'em about the other guys in it, Chris said. Okay, besides Lardass Hogan and Billy Traynor, there was Calvin Spire, the fattest guy in town. He ran the jewelry store, Gretna Jewels, Vern said, and snickered. Chris gave him a black look. And then there's this guy who's a disc jockey at a radio station up in Lewiston. He ain't exactly fat, but he's sort of chubby. And the last guy was Hubbard Gretna, the third, who was the principal of Lardass Hogan's school. He was eating against his own principal? Teddy asked. Chris clutched his knees and rocked back and forth joyfully. Ain't that great? Go on, Gordy. I had them now. They were all leaning forward. I felt an intoxicating sense of power. I tossed my empty Coke bottle into Woods and scrunched around a little bit to get comfortable. I remember hearing the chickade again, off in the woods, farther away now, lifting its monstrous endless call into the sky. Dee 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 dee. So, he gets this idea, I said. The greatest revenge idea that a kid ever had. The big night comes, and the end of Pioneer Days. The pie eating contest comes just before the fireworks. The main street of Gretna has always been closed off so people can walk around in it. And there's this big platform set up right in the street. There's bunting hanging down and a big crowd in front. There's also a photographer from the paper to get a picture of the winner and the blueberries all over his face because it turned out to be blueberry pies that year. Also, I almost forgot to tell you this. They had to eat the pies with their hands tied behind their backs. So dig it. They come up onto the platform. Oh my god. 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 Okay, we're gonna try to do this. We're gonna skim through this really, really quick. From Revenge of Lardass Hogan by Gordon LaChance, originally published in Cavalier Magazine, March 1975, used by permission. Oh, okay, so these are like actual stories that Gordy released when he got older. This is interesting. Oh my God, I love it. They came up to the platform one by one and stood behind a long trestle table covered with a linen cloth. The table was stacked high with pies and stood on the edge of a platform. Above it were loop necklaces of bare 100-volt bulbs, moths, and night flyers, banging softly against them and haloing them. Above the platform, bathed in spotlights, was a long sign which read, the Great Gretna Pie Eat of 1960, to either the side of sign-hung bathering loudspeakers supplied by Chuck Day and the Great Day Appliance Shop. Bill Tavis, the reigning champion, was Chuck's cousin. As each contestant came up, his hands bound behind him and his shirt front open like Sidney Cartoon on his way to the guillotine, Mayor Charbonneau would announce his name over Chuck's PA system and tie a large white bib around his neck. Calvin Spear received a token applause only in spite of his belly, which was the size of a 20-gallon water barrel. He was considered an underdog, second only to the Hogan Kid. Most considered Lardass a comer, but too young and experienced to do much this year. After Spear, Bob Cormer was introduced. Cormer was a disc jockey who was a popular afternoon program at Willem in Lewiston. He got a bigger hand, accompanied by a few screams from the teenage girls in the audience. The girls thought he was cute. John Wiggins, principal of Gretna Elementary School, followed Cormier. He received a hearty cheer from the older section of the audience and a few scattered boos from the fractious members of his student body. Wiggins managed to beam partly and frown steeringly down on the audience at the same time. Next, Mayor Charbonneau, introduced by Lardass, a new participant in the annual Great Greta Pie Eat, but one we expect great things from the future. Young Master David Hogan, Lardass got a big round of applause as Mayor Charbonneau tied on his bib. And as it was dying away, a rehearsed Greek chorus just beyond the reach of 100 Walt bulbs cried out in wicked Unisian. Go get him, Lardass. They were muffled shrieks of laughter, running footsteps, a few shadows that no one could or would identify, some nervous laughter, some judicial frowns, the largest from his inner Charbonneau, the most visible figure of authority. Lardass himself appeared to not even notice, the small smile greasing his thick lips, and the creasing his thick chops did not change as the mayor, still frowning largely, tied his bib around his neck and told him not to pay attention to fools in the audience, as if the mayor had even the faintest inkling of monstrous fools Lardass Hogan had suffered and would continue to suffer as he rumbled through like a Nazi tiger tank. The mayor's breath was warm and smelled of beer. The last contestant to mount the bunting decorated stage drew the loudest and most sustainable applause. This was the legendary Bill Travis, 6'5" tall, gangling, voracious. Travis was a mechanic at the local Amoco station down by the rail yard, a likable fellow if there ever was one. It was common knowledge around town that there were more involved in the Great Greta Pie Eat than mere $5, at least for Bill Travis there was. But there were two reasons for this. First, people always came by the station to congratulate Bill after he won the contest, and most everyone who came to congratulate stayed to get his gas tank filled. And two garage boys were sometimes booked up for a solid month after the contest. Folks would come in to get a muffler replaced or their wheelbarrows greased and would sit in the theater chairs ranked along one wall. Jerry Malling, who owned the Amoco, had salvaged them from the old Gem Theater when it was torn down in 1957, drinking Cokes and Moxies from out of the machine and gassing with Bill about the contest as he changed spark plugs or rolled over around a crawly wheelie under someone's international harvester pickup, looking like holes in the exhaust system. Bill always seemed willing to talk, which was one of the reasons he was so liked in Gretna. There was some dispute around town as to whether Jerry Malling gave Bill a flat bonus for the extra business his yearly feat or yearly eat, if you prefer, brought in, or if he got an out and out raise. Whatever way it was, there could be no doubt that Travis did much better than most small town ranch jockeys. He had a nice looking 2-story ranch out on the Sabatus Road, and certainly Snid people referred to it as the house that that pie was built. There was probably an exaggeration, but Bill had it coming another way. Which brings us to the second reason there was more in it from Travis than $5. The pie eat was a hot wagering event in Gretna. Perhaps most people only came to laugh, but a mildly minority also came to lay their money down. Contestants were observed and discussed by these bettors as ardently as thoroughbreds are observed and discussed by racing trouts. The waggers accosted. My God, bro, I don't even know what this means. What are these words? Contestant friends, relatives, and even mere acquaintances. They preyed out any and all details concerning the contestants' eating habits. They there was also a lot of discussion about the year's official pie. Apple was considered a heavy pie, apricot a light one, although a contestant had to resign himself to a day or two of the trots after downing 3 or 4 apricot pies. Oh my god, did I say drowning? I meant downing. That year's official pie, blueberry, was considered a happy medium. Bettors, of course, were particularly interested in their man's stomach for blueberry dishes. How did he do on blueberry buckle? Did he favor blueberry jam or strawberry preserves? He had been known to sprinkle blueberries on his breakfast cereal, or was he strictly a bananas and cream sort of fellow? There were other questions of some moment. Was he a fast eater who slowed down, or a slow eater who started to speed up as things got serious, or just a good steady all around trencher man? How many hot dogs could he put away while watching a Babe Ruth League game down at the St. Dom's baseball field? Was he much of a beer drinker, and if so, how many bottles did he usually put away in the course of the evening? Was he a belcher? It was believed that a good belcher was a bit tough to beat over the long haul. All of this and other information was sifted, the odds laid, the bets made, how much money actually changed hands during the week or so following pie night. I have no way of knowing, but if you held a gun to my head and forced me to guess, I'd put it at close to $1,000. That probably sounds like a pretty paltry figure, but it was a lot of money to be passing around in such a small town 15 years ago. Um, okay. Well, we're gonna stop like at this top page here. Um, we read we read 12 pages today. Oh my god, that's so fun. That's it. That's all. I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.